Hi guys, this little lens right here represents what I think is a turning point in the mirrorless camera industry. It is a fantastic lens, but it is only $129. Now, a couple of years ago, I would have said that that was impossible, and it was. A lot of things have changed in the last 12 to 24 months when it comes to manufacturing of lenses. Now, lower priced lenses can be excellent quality because of the advances made in technology for manufacturing lenses. $129. I don't know if they're going to leave that at this price forever, but that is currently the price. So check the links to make sure that it is still $129. But as you will see in this video, this lens definitely punches way above that price point, so we should talk about it. Now, I've talked about this lens on the channel before, but the price has recently been lowered to $129, and now it is available for the Nikon Z mount as well. So it's available for the Fuji X, the Sony E, which is this one, and the Nikon Z mount at that very low price. And this is not a sponsored video. I did buy this lens with my own wife's money, but TTArtisan, who make this lens, they have been good to the channel in the past. They often send me lenses. If I ask for something for review, they will send it in, and they did send the Fuji X mount previously, but I bought this one because I wanted to pick one up for my beauty Sony cameras as well. This is the 56mm f1.8. Now, I love a 56mm f1.8 because I get to take all of those nice portraits, family portraits. You're going out, like I went to the zoo with my family here, and they had a little Halloween expo, which was nice, you know, having the homicidal maniacs chasing the children around the zoo. Wholesome family fun right there. But you can see from these portraits what this lens really excels at, and that is portrait photography. You want those head and shoulder shots of people with that nice blurry background. A 56mm f1.8 will get you that. A lot of portrait photographers who shoot full frame like to shoot about an 85mm, and this will get you a similar field of view. Of course, you can use a 56 for whatever you want. You can use it for video work if you have enough room between you and your subject. You can use it for food photography, for travel photography, street photography. I really like it for street photography because I get to stand back and stay out of the action and then take my little photos without anyone seeing me. I get enough attention, you know, in my life for my looks. I'd like to keep my camera out of it. Let's talk about the build quality before we get into the optical quality. And I love the build quality of this lens. I really like what TTArtisan are doing with their lower price lenses. They are all metal lenses with a very smooth turning focus ring. It is unbelievably smooth, and it is just solid, and it feels really great to hold. There are no bells and whistles. There are no buttons or switches or aperture rings, and of course there aren't. It's $129. It has a very cool lens hood that is a crushed can style lens hood, which makes it really compact in your camera bag, and I think it looks super stylish. I am a big fan of this. Now, there is no weather sealing on this lens, so you do have to keep it out of the elements. It has a 52mm filter thread, and the minimum focus distance is 0.5 meters, which is pretty standard for a 56mm. And it has this clever little USB-C port in the rear lens cap, so that is how you can update your lens. You don't need your camera. Just make sure you don't lose that rear lens cap. And when you take a look at the lens on my little A6700, it just looks so classy, and it's a perfect size for it. It balances really well. I can take this around all day, and I do, and I love it. And now let's get into the optics. First, we will talk about sharpness. The center of the lens is extremely sharp, even down at f1.8, which is great because when you want to take your portraits, you will probably, if you're like me, you want to do it at f1.8 and blur out that background as much as you can. If you zoom in 200, 300%, you will see just a very sharp image. You will be able to see all those eyelashes on your stunning model. But down at 1.8, you will notice that the corners are not quite as sharp as the center. And a lot of people will not mind that because it's a portrait lens for most people. So they want the thing in the middle to be sharp and in focus, and the corners can be soft because those are blurred out anyway. However, if you're someone who wants to shoot cityscapes or landscapes and you want that full corner-to-corner sharpness, then you're not going to get it down at f1.8. But once again, you probably aren't going to shoot it like that because if you're shooting cityscapes and landscapes, then you will stop it down probably to f5.6 or f8, and in that case, you will get sharper corners. So, you know, all around, pretty good. When we talk about autofocus, it is a new thing to have lenses this cheap that have good autofocus. Previously, lenses this cheap were all manual focus lenses, and when they did get autofocus, the autofocus wasn't that great, but now the autofocus is excellent. It is very snappy and very responsive, especially on this particular lens, this 56 1.8. It grabs focus very quickly, no hesitation, no fluttering, it doesn't let go, and you can track your subjects very well as well. In video, it also is excellent at focus and tracking, but you will notice if you have, say, your Sony camera up on the fastest autofocus setting and you are racking focus from very close to very far away, you will see a little wobble as it tries to grab focus. Now, that is an extreme circumstance that most people aren't going to be using, but it is there. And you can see from this example, the focus breathing. There is a moderate amount of focus breathing on this lens, as you can see from this test. But once again, most people aren't going to be using this lens for video and super long focus pulls. But if you are, be aware of that moderate focus breathing. The autofocus is also really quiet, not completely dead silent, and your camera's mics might pick it up if you are using the internal mics in video, but I gotta say, no complaints with the autofocus noise. It is quite minimal. With chromatic aberration and longitudinal chromatic aberration, once again, we have good news. Down at f1.8, it is not perfect, but it is really great. The chromatic aberration and the longitudinal chromatic aberration is suppressed quite well. You really have to pixel peep and raise your shadows from a ridiculously backlit environment to get any of the chromatic aberration that is lateral. You can see a tiny bit at f1.8, and by the time you get to f2.8, it is completely gone. The longitudinal chromatic aberration, that is the color fringing you will see on the areas that are out of focus in the foreground and the background. That, once again, very well controlled. There is some down at f1.8. By the time you're at f2.8, it's barely worth talking about, and at f4, it is completely gone. So for $129, the chromatic aberration and longitudinal chromatic aberration control is just amazing. So with the Bokeh and the Bokeh balls, we have more surprising news in that they are so good for the price point. I really like the out of focus backgrounds on this lens. When it gets really busy back there, it's not quite as smooth as something like a G Master lens, but it is still really great. And the Bokeh balls are almost perfect. They're not quite as round as some of the more expensive lenses, but they are clean. There is no onion ringing. Nobody put any onion rings or dirt on your balls right there, the Bokeh balls, and they look so good, so clean. I really loved it. I didn't think this lens would have such nice bokeh or bokeh balls. With flaring and ghosting, you have a little bit of a mixed bag. I think the flares are excellently controlled. They are nice and neat, so flaring won't be a major issue for your lens. However, once in a while, if the sun is in the right angle, or the wrong angle, I should say, you could get some ghosting and some lack of contrast. Generally, the contrast is quite good on this lens. It's just once in a while, if that sun at the wrong angle creeps in, it can lose some of that contrast. But if you use the crushed can metal lens hood, you shouldn't have much of a problem at all. The Sunstars start at about f10, and at f16, they are quite nice. Not the best I've ever seen, but pretty nice Sunstars. When it comes to vignetting and distortion, normally at this point in the video, I say these things, no matter what is in the lens, is a non-issue, because just with one touch of a button in Lightroom, you can correct it with a Lightroom profile. But with a lens like this, you don't have any Lightroom profiles. TTArtisan, up until this point, has not released any kind of Lightroom profile to correct any distortions or vignetting, so it is very important to pay attention to the distortion and vignetting in this lens. And I am happy to say that when it comes to distortion, there is virtually none. You may get a tiny bit of barrel distortion that you would want to correct, but I don't think so. I don't see any in my photos, so I am fine leaving the distortion untouched. However, the vignetting is fairly heavy around f1.8. It is still there at f2.8, but by f4 it is completely gone. Now, vignetting is not very difficult to manually correct in a program like Lightroom or any other photo editing program. So again, I don't think that is much of a big deal. However, I would encourage TTArtisan, if they are watching this, and you should be watching this, we should all be watching my channel. After all, I would encourage TTArtisan to work with Lightroom and try to get their profiles into Lightroom so that we can correct them as we do with a Sony G Master lens. It would be much better, I think, for the company in the long run and for the user experience. So what we have here is a portrait lens that is very sharp, has great autofocus, great colors coming out of it, great control of chromatic aberration, wonderful autofocus backgrounds, and good flaring and contrast control for $129. So I want to thank TTArtisan for making a lens that's $129, because my wife, she probably won't even notice that on her credit card, and maybe she will if she watches this video, but it serves her right for not watching my video. She's not as great as you guys. I appreciate you watching this, especially right to the end. Let me know down below if this lens floats your boat, and if not, what lens floats your boat, because there are a lot of lenses that are coming out these days that are around this focal length that are quite affordable. Let me know your favorites and we can have a nice little discussion about it. Thanks for watching this. We'll talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.